The emergency session had already lasted 3 days, and still the delegates argued. Ambassador Tellus watched the chaos from his observation pod, his compound eyes tracking dozens of heated conversations at once. The great chamber of Station Harmonix had never seen such disorder. Representatives from 47 worlds shouted over each other, their translation devices creating a storm of overlapping voices. Another colony gone, someone wailed from the lower tiers. 3 billion souls consumed in mere hours. Tellus felt his exoskeleton tighten with stress. The numbers were incomprehensible. The Ravagers had broken through the outer rim 2 cycles ago, and nothing had stopped them since. Worlds that had stood for thousands of years were now lifeless husks, stripped of all organic matter. The swarm moved like a plague, and it was accelerating. High Chancellor Orem finally activated the silence field. The chamber fell quiet, though many delegates continued gesturing angrily. Orem's aquatic tank glowed with bioluminescence as he addressed the assembly. His translated voice carried a weight that commanded respect. We have heard every proposal. Evacuation, negotiation, last stand defense. All have merit and all have fatal flaws. Orem paused, letting his words sink in. But there is one option we have not discussed. One resource we have deliberately ignored for 8 decades. Tellus knew what was coming. He had suggested it privately to Orem 3 days ago, and the Chancellor had called him insane. But desperate times bred desperate measures. You cannot mean... General Kryn rose from his seat, his reptilian face twisted in disbelief. The quarantine exists for good reason. The quarantine exists because we were afraid, Orem said quietly. Perhaps it is time to admit that fear was more about pride than safety. The chamber erupted again. Tellus activated his own speaking rights and amplified his voice above the din. I will say what the Chancellor is too diplomatic to state plainly. We need Earth, we need the humans. Silence fell like a hammer. Even through translation, that word carried weight. Human. The species too dangerous to join the galactic community. The species that had been locked away in their home system since their first contact attempt ended in catastrophe. They killed 300 of our peacekeepers. Someone shrieked. They defended their colony from what they perceived as an invasion, Tellus countered, because we did not announce ourselves properly. Because we assumed a new species would understand our protocols. General Kryn slammed his clawed fist against his podium. They fought with a ferocity that violated every rule of civilized warfare. They used weapons designed to cause maximum suffering. They pursued our ships even after we retreated. They are animals. They are survivors, Tellus said. Their world is classified as a Class 2 Deathworld. Do any of you understand what that means? Gravity strong enough to crush most of us. Predators that hunt in the darkness. Weather patterns that can destroy cities. They evolved in hell and they learned to master it, which is precisely why they should stay locked away. Kryn roared. Tellus spread his forearms in a gesture of openness. I have studied them extensively since the incident. Yes, they are dangerous. Yes. Their capacity for violence exceeds anything in our experience. But I have also learned something else about humans. They form bonds with remarkable ease. They extend protection to those they consider allies. Their entire history is filled with examples of them defending others at great cost to themselves. Fairy tales, someone muttered. Documented facts, Tellus shot back. Before we quarantined them, they were already attempting to establish protective pacts with nearby systems. Not conquest. Protection. It is in their nature. High Chancellor Orem's tank pulsed with deep blue light, a sign of serious consideration. The vote will be simple. Do we contact Earth and request assistance, or do we face the Ravagers with our current forces? All in favor of maintaining our present course? Less than a third of the delegates activated their affirmative signals. The opposition was clear but not overwhelming. All in favor of contacting Earth? More lights appeared, but slowly. Each delegate seemed to struggle with the decision. Tellus watched the count climb. 19, 23, 28. It needed 30 to pass. 29. The chamber held its collective breath. 30. The motion passes, Orem announced. We will transmit a request for aid to the Sol system. May the ancient stars forgive us if this proves to be our final mistake. The transmission was prepared within hours. Tellus supervised every word, ensuring the message conveyed both the dire nature of their situation and the formal respect that humans apparently valued. The incident 8 decades ago had taught them that humans responded poorly to assumptions of superiority. As the message launched toward Earth, traveling on quantum channels that would reach Sol system in 3 days, Tellus found himself in the observation dome with General Kryn. The warrior had been silent since the vote, staring out at the stars. "You believe this will work?" Kryn asked finally. "I believe we have no other choice," Tellus replied honestly. "I fought in the border wars. I have faced death many times without fear." Kryn's voice dropped lower. "But the idea of humans coming here with their warships and their weapons joining our fleets, it terrifies me more than the Ravagers ever could." "Fear can be useful," Tellus said. "It keeps us cautious. But it can also blind us to potential allies, or it warns us of predators," Kryn countered. 3 days later, the response came. It was not a lengthy diplomatic message. It was not a request for negotiation or terms. It was a simple transmission that made every delegate in the assembly feel a chill run through their various biologies. Message received. Fleet deploying. 200 warships en route. Admiral Hayes commanding. Estimated arrival 14 days. Humanity remembers who turned their backs on us. We are coming anyway. Earth out. Tellus read the message 3 times. 200 warships. They were sending a fleet that size without even waiting for confirmation of details, without negotiating terms, without asking for anything in return except implicit trust that this was not a trap. "By the stars," Kryn whispered beside him. "What have we done?" "We have summoned the Deathworlders," Tellus said quietly. "Now we can only hope they are as honorable as I believe and pray they are as fierce as you fear. Because if they cannot stop the Ravagers, nothing will." Across the station, monitoring systems began picking up unusual energy signatures from the direction of Sol system. Long-range sensors reported multiple massive vessels accelerating far faster than should be possible for ships of their size. The signatures suggested weapon systems that made assembly military technology look primitive. The humans were coming, and the galaxy held its breath. Rivers had served in the Deep Space Monitoring Division for 12 years, and nothing interesting ever happened. His job consisted of watching automated systems track empty space, drinking bad recycled coffee, and counting down the hours until his shift ended. When the console started beeping with an incoming transmission on the old first contact frequency, he assumed it was a malfunction. Then he saw the origin point. Harmonic Station, the Galactic Assembly's seat of power, the same organization that had locked humanity in their home system for 8 decades and pretended they did not exist. His hands shook as he routed the message through translation protocols. When the contents appeared on his screen, he read them twice before sprinting for the command office. Protocol demanded he follow proper channels, but protocol had not prepared him for this. Admiral Hayes looked up from her reports with mild annoyance when Rivers burst through her door. The annoyance vanished when she saw his expression. Hayes had commanded Earth's defense forces for 2 decades, and she knew panic when she saw it. "The Assembly just sent us a distress call," Rivers blurted out. "They are being destroyed by something called the Ravager Swarm. They are asking for military assistance." Hayes took the datapad from his trembling hands and read in silence. Her weathered face showed no emotion, but Rivers noticed her jaw tightening with each line. When she finished, she set the pad down carefully as if it might explode. "Get me Parliament. Emergency session. Tell them it cannot wait." Within 6 hours, every major government representative on Earth had gathered in the United Territories Parliament building in Geneva. The chamber buzzed with speculation as Hayes presented the transmission to the assembled leaders. President Walsh read it aloud for those in attendance, her voice steady despite the weight of the decision before them. "They had no problem locking us away like criminals," Representative Liu said bitterly. 300 peacekeepers died because of a misunderstanding we tried to explain, and they treated us like murderers. Now they want our help. They are dying," Hayes said simply. "Whatever this swarm is, it has destroyed multiple civilizations. If we refuse to help, billions will die." "Why should we care about their billions?" another voice called out. "They never cared about our millions who wanted to explore, to trade, to join the galactic community." President Walsh raised her hand for silence. "I understand the anger. I feel it too. But we need to think carefully about what kind of species we want to be. Do we let past grievances dictate our morality?" The debate raged for hours. Some argued for intervention on purely moral grounds. Others saw an opportunity to prove humanity's worth to the galaxy. Still others wanted revenge by refusing the call entirely. Hayes sat quietly through most of it, waiting for the right moment. Finally, she stood and activated the central display. Images appeared showing humanity's military capabilities. Warships built in orbital dockyards around Mars and Luna. Weapons testing facilities on Titan. Marine training centers in the asteroid belt. For 8 decades, humanity had been locked in their system, but they had not been idle. "This is not about them," Hayes said. "This is about us. We have spent 80 years asking ourselves why we were treated like monsters for defending our people. We have spent 80 years wondering if maybe they were right, if maybe we are too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous for civilized space." She let that sink in before continuing. "Here is our chance to answer that question. We can stay home and let them face annihilation. That would prove we are petty and vengeful, or we can go help them despite everything they have done to us. That would prove what I have always believed about humanity. We are fierce, yes. We are dangerous, yes. But we are also capable of extraordinary compassion." "Pretty speech," Representative Liu said. "But you are talking about sending our people to die for aliens who despise us." "I am talking about being the species we claim to be," Hayes replied. "The Assembly fears us because they have never seen anything like us. Let us show them what we really are. Not monsters, protectors." The vote was not unanimous, but it passed with a clear majority. Earth would answer the call. Hayes was given full authority to assemble a response fleet and negotiate terms once contact was established. The preparation took 6 days. 200 warships were pulled from defensive positions and retrofitted for long-range deployment. Crews volunteered faster than ships could be assigned. When news spread through civilian channels, the response surprised even Hayes. Billions of humans followed the developments with fierce pride. Their species had been rejected, isolated, and insulted. Now they had a chance to prove their worth. Dr. Henry Park joined the mission as chief xenobiologist, one of the few humans who had extensively studied alien physiology from the limited data available. He stood in the hangar bay of the flagship Indomitable, watching Marines load equipment and supplies. A young lieutenant named Cole was drilling his squad nearby, running them through combat scenarios that would make Assembly soldiers faint. "Do you think they will accept our help gracefully?" Park asked Hayes, who had stopped to inspect the preparations. "Gracefully? No," Hayes smiled grimly. "They are terrified of us." That transmission was desperation talking. But desperation is honest. They need us and they know it. What if we are not enough? What if this swarm is something even we cannot handle? Hayes looked at him with the calm certainty of someone who had faced death many times. "Then at least we will have tried. That matters more than victory." The fleet departed on schedule, accelerating out of Sol system at speeds that would have impressed any assembly engineer. The ships moved in perfect formation, a demonstration of coordination that came from decades of training and isolation. On Earth, billions watched the broadcast, seeing their representatives finally heading toward the stars that had been denied them for so long. On the Indomitable's bridge, Hayes recorded a response to the Assembly's message. She kept it brief, knowing that humans had never been good at flowery diplomatic language. Message received. Fleet deploying. 200 warships en route. Admiral Hayes commanding. Estimated arrival, 14 days. Humanity remembers who turned their backs on us. We are coming anyway. Earth out. Commander Cross, Hayes' second-in-command, raised an eyebrow at the wording. That last part might sound aggressive. "Good," Hayes said. "Let them worry a little. Let them remember that we are coming by choice, not obligation." As the fleet entered faster than light transit, Park found himself in the observation deck with dozens of crew members. They stared at the streaking stars, each lost in their own thoughts. Somewhere ahead lay first contact with multiple alien species. Somewhere ahead lay a war against an enemy they knew nothing about. Somewhere ahead lay humanity's chance to redefine itself in the eyes of the galaxy. "Do you think they will understand us?" Cole asked, appearing beside Park. The lieutenant looked young, barely 25, but his eyes held the focus of a natural warrior. "Probably not at first," Park admitted. "We evolve differently. We think differently. What seems normal to us might seem insane to them, like charging toward enemies instead of running away." "Exactly like that," Cole grinned. "Then they are in for quite a surprise, because we are about to show them what humans do best. We are going to run toward the danger, laugh in its face, and protect everyone behind us, just like we always have." Park hoped the assembly was ready for that revelation. Something told him they were not. The galaxy had locked away humanity because they feared human violence. They were about to learn that violence wielded in defense of others had a different name. They called it courage. Tellus had prepared himself for this moment. He had reviewed every piece of available data about humans. He had studied their history, their psychology, their biology. He thought he understood what to expect when the human fleet arrived at the designated meeting. Coordinates. He was completely wrong. The ships materialized from faster-than-light transit with a precision that assembly vessels could never match. 200 warships appeared in perfect formation, their hulls painted in dark colors that seemed designed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They looked nothing like proper exploration vessels. They looked like exactly what they were: machines built for killing. General Kryn stood beside Tellus in the observation room of the diplomatic ship Harmony's voice, and his entire body had gone rigid with instinct. "Those are not ships," he whispered. "Those are weapons that happen to move through space." The human flagship dwarfed their diplomatic vessel. Where assembly ships curved with elegant lines meant to inspire peace and cooperation, the human ship was all angles and armor plating. Weapon systems covered its surface like scales on a predator. It broadcast no friendly colors, no welcoming lights. It simply existed, massive and intimidating. "They are hailing us," the communications officer announced nervously. The view screen activated, and Tellus got his first real-time look at a human. Admiral Hayes appeared in the frame, her gray hair pulled back tightly, her uniform simple and functional. Her eyes scanned the bridge of the diplomatic ship with an intensity that made everyone uncomfortable. These were predator's eyes evolved to track prey across vast distances. "I am Admiral Hayes of Earth's Expeditionary Fleet. We received your request for assistance. Before we proceed, I need to understand the full situation. What exactly are we dealing with?" Tellus stepped forward, fighting every instinct that told him to appear smaller, less threatening. Humans responded to confidence. "I am Ambassador Tellus of the Verdant Collective. The Ravager Swarm is a hive-mind entity that consumes all biological matter in its path. It has destroyed 3 civilizations in 2 cycles. Our defensive fleets have proven completely ineffective." Hayes listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When Tellus finished, she nodded once. "Tactical data? We will transmit everything we have," Tellus said. "Admiral, I must also say, humanity's willingness to assist despite our past treatment shows remarkable." "Save the diplomacy," Hayes interrupted. "We are not here for apologies or gratitude. We are here to stop a threat. Everything else can wait until after the shooting stops. Now my command staff needs to meet with your military leadership. We will send a shuttle to dock with your vessel." The transmission ended before Tellus could respond. Kryn let out a sound that might have been a laugh or a growl. "Well, they certainly have not learned any manners in 80 years. They learned we wasted their time with ceremony while their people died," Tellus said quietly. "Can you blame them for being direct?" The human shuttle arrived 30 minutes later, moving with the same aggressive efficiency as their warships. When the airlock opened, Tellus experienced his second shock of the day. The humans were huge, not compared to some of the galaxy's larger species, but their density, their presence, the way they moved, everything screamed danger. Admiral Hayes walked with 3 others: Commander Cross, Dr. Park, and Lieutenant Cole. They wore simple uniforms without excessive decoration. Their weapons were holstered but visible. Every motion was economical, purposeful. These were not diplomats. These were warriors who happened to be capable of conversation. "Gravity is lighter here than on our ship," Hayes observed. "0.8 standard assembly, if I recall. We will adjust." Tellus noticed all 4 humans moving slightly slower, compensating for the reduced gravity that felt normal to most assembly species. They were adapting in real time to an environment that would take most aliens weeks to acclimate to. The briefing room had been prepared with accommodations for various biologies. Hayes and her team sat without apparent concern for the odd angles of furniture designed for different body types. Dr. Park pulled out a tablet and began taking notes immediately. "Show us what you know about the Ravagers," Hayes said. Tellus activated the holographic display. Images appeared showing the swarm in action. Massive organic ships that seemed to grow rather than being built. Waves of smaller creatures that overwhelmed defenders. Worlds left barren and lifeless. The footage was horrifying even after multiple viewings. The humans watched in silence, Lieutenant Cole's expression never changed, though his eyes tracked every detail with frightening intensity. Commander Cross made occasional notes on her own device. Dr. Park leaned forward, studying the biological aspects with clear fascination rather than fear. Hayes spoke first. Hive mind, single point of failure. If we can identify and eliminate the central consciousness, the rest should become disorganized. Assuming it has a central consciousness, Kryn objected, we have found no evidence of leadership structure. Everything this size needs coordination, Cross said. The question is whether the coordination is distributed or centralized. From these attack patterns, I would guess centralized. See how they regroup after losses? That is not autonomous behavior. Something is directing them. Tellus felt a chill. The humans had been analyzing the threat for less than 10 minutes and had already developed theories that assembly military minds had missed for months. Your defensive tactics, Hayes said, pulling up assembly battle data. You retreat when encountering superior forces. You minimize losses. You try to preserve ships and personnel. Of course, Kryn said. That is basic military doctrine. For you, maybe. Hayes looked at him directly. Humans learned warfare differently. We learned from hunting, from fighting predators, from conflicts where retreat often meant death. Our doctrine is different. We advance toward threats. We accept casualties if it achieves objectives. We do not stop until the enemy is destroyed or we are. The room went quiet. Tellus saw several of his staff members physically recoil from Hayes's words. The idea of deliberately accepting casualties was alien to assembly thinking. Warfare was supposed to be civilized, controlled, minimal. That is insane, someone whispered. Lieutenant Cole smiled, and it was not a comforting expression. Insane is what you call it when you do not understand the logic. On Earth, we call it survival. Every predator on our world thinks the same way. Attack until you win or die trying. Humans became the top predator by being better at it than everything else. Dr. Park cleared his throat. Perhaps a demonstration would be useful. Lieutenant Cole, would you be willing to participate in a combat simulation with General Kryn? Kryn's scales rippled with offense. I am a decorated warrior. I have fought in 17 campaigns. I am 25 years old and I have trained since I was 18, Cole said calmly. Your experience is noted, but our training is different. The simulation room was designed for assembly combat training, which focused on precision strikes and tactical maneuvering. Kryn selected a plasma rifle, standard military issue. Cole requested a simple kinetic weapon, bullets instead of energy, which confused the technicians until Park explained that humans preferred weapons with physical feedback. The simulation began. Kryn used textbook tactics. Take cover, fire from concealment, reposition, conserve ammunition. He was good. His movements showed decades of experience. Cole ignored all of it. He ran forward, firing as he moved. When Kryn's shots came close, Cole dove and rolled, never stopping his advance. He used cover not to hide but to close distance. Within 30 seconds, he was within melee range. The simulation ended with Cole's simulated knife at Kryn's simulated throat. Again, Kryn demanded. They ran the simulation 5 times. Cole won every time with different tactics but the same basic principle. Relentless aggression. By the final round, Kryn was breathing heavily, his reptilian body showing clear signs of stress. You do not fight like a soldier, Kryn said finally. You fight like a cornered animal. We fight like pack hunters, Cole corrected. The difference is important. Animals fight alone. Humans fight together, but we use the same intensity. Hayes stood, indicating the meeting was over. We need 48 hours to analyze the data and develop a tactical plan. Then we will join your defensive line and wait for the Ravagers. When they come, you will see what human warfare looks like on a larger scale. I suggest you prepare your people. We do things differently, and it will be uncomfortable to watch. As the humans returned to their shuttle, Tellus found himself standing with Kryn in the observation room, watching the human fleet maintain its perfect formation in the darkness. They are what we feared they would be, Kryn said softly. Dangerous, aggressive, built for violence. Yes, Tellus agreed. But did you notice something else? They came anyway. They knew we feared them. They knew we rejected them. And they came anyway. Perhaps that is what makes them truly different. They choose to protect, even when they have every reason not to. Or perhaps, Kryn said, they simply enjoy fighting so much that any excuse will do. Tellus had no answer to that. Time would tell which of them was right about humanity's true nature. In 2 days, they would join the front lines. In 2 days, the galaxy would see what happened when Deathworlders went to war. The defense line at Bellum 7 had been holding for 3 weeks, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time. The Ravager swarm did not tire. It did not negotiate. It simply consumed and moved forward. Assembly forces had established a perimeter around the inhabited system, hoping to evacuate the 2 billion colonists on New Prosperity before the inevitable breakthrough occurred. That breakthrough came at dawn, local time. Commander Cross watched the sensor displays from her station aboard the Indomitable, seeing the familiar pattern emerge. Swarm vessels appeared at the edge of the system in numbers that made previous encounters look like minor skirmishes. Hundreds of organic ships, each one massive and writhing with biomechanical weapons. Between them, thousands of smaller craft darted like insects around a hive. Assembly fleet is moving to intercept, the tactical officer reported. Standard defensive formation. They are signaling for us to support their rear line. Hayes studied the tactical display with the calm focus of someone who had run this scenario 100 times in simulation. The assembly ships moved in precise patterns, maintaining safe distances from each other and from the enemy. They fired long-range weapons, trying to whittle down the swarm before close engagement became necessary. It was textbook defensive warfare. It was also failing. The swarm is adapting to their firing patterns, Cross noted. They have seen this before. They are spreading out, forcing the assembly to choose between targets. Assembly ships are falling back, another officer called out. Retreat pattern Alpha. They are trying to draw the swarm into the inner defense grid. Hayes opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Hayes. We are not supporting the rear line. We are going through the middle. Plot course directly toward the heaviest concentration of enemy vessels. Maximum speed. Weapons free as soon as we are in range. The bridge crew executed her orders without hesitation, but Cross saw several assembly liaison officers go pale with shock. One of them found his voice. Admiral, you cannot be serious. That is suicide. That is initiative, Hayes corrected. The swarm expects retreat. We are going to give them aggression instead. Sometimes the best defense is a violent offense. The human fleet broke formation with the assembly line and accelerated forward. 200 warships moving at attack speed looked like a spear thrust into the heart of the enemy. On assembly ships, commanders watched their sensors in disbelief as the humans charged directly toward overwhelming enemy forces. Tellus was aboard an assembly cruiser when he saw the human fleet's maneuver. He activated his communication link to General Kryn, who commanded the cruiser's weapons batteries. They have gone mad, Kryn said before Tellus could speak. They are charging into the densest part of the swarm. They will be destroyed in minutes. Or they will do exactly what they trained to do, Tellus said, though his own doubt was hard to ignore. Watch, learn. The first human ships entered maximum range of Ravager weapons. Instead of the careful, measured combat the assembly practiced, what followed was chaos and violence on a scale that redefined warfare. Human weapons opened up with devastating effect. Kinetic rounds, actual physical projectiles, tore through Ravager bioships with shocking efficiency. Energy weapons designed to function in Earth's harsh electromagnetic environment proved far more powerful than assembly equivalents. Missiles launched in swarms of their own, each one guided by targeting systems that never missed. But what truly shocked the observers was the humans' willingness to take damage in exchange for kills. When Ravager ships closed for boarding attempts, human vessels let them. Then Marines poured into the enemy ships, fighting room by room, turning the Ravager's own tactic against them. Sergeant Diana Ross led her squad into the first boarding action, her helmet camera feeding data back to the Indomitable's command center. Hayes watched the footage with professional interest while continuing to direct the larger battle. The interior of a Ravager ship looked like something from a nightmare. Organic walls that pulsed with alien life, corridors that seemed to breathe, floors covered in substances that dissolved metal on contact. The Ravager creatures themselves were worse, insectoid things the size of humans with claws and mandibles designed to tear through armor. Ross's squad moved through it like they were on a training exercise. Short, controlled bursts of gunfire, grenades thrown with precision. When ammunition ran low, they switched to blades and fought in close quarters without hesitation. One Marine lost an arm to a Ravager's claws and kept fighting with the other hand until her squad pulled her to safety. "Sergeant Ross, what is your status?" Hayes asked calmly through the communication link. "We are having a good time, Admiral," Ross replied between bursts of gunfire. "These things are tough, but they do not coordinate well up close." Taking the primary nerve cluster now. The human squads had identified the control nodes within each Ravager ship, organic computers that directed the vessel's functions. Destroying them turned the ships into dead hulks. It was brutal, dangerous work that resulted in casualties, but it worked. Throughout the battle, assembly forces watched in horror and fascination. The humans were taking losses. Ships were damaged. Marines were dying. But the human fleet did not slow down. They did not retreat. They pressed forward with relentless intensity, and the Ravager swarm, which had never encountered resistance like this, began to falter. Dr. Park monitored the biological data streaming in from combat zones, his medical training proving useful in unexpected ways. "Admiral, I am seeing a pattern. The Ravagers are connected through some kind of pheromone network. When we damage multiple ships in close proximity, the nearby vessels become disorganized." "Exploitable?" Hayes asked. "Very. If we focus our attacks on cluster formations rather than individual targets, we can cascade the confusion through larger sections of the swarm." Hayes relayed the tactical information to all human ships. The fleet adjusted its targeting priorities immediately, focusing fire on groups rather than singles. The effect was dramatic. Sections of the Ravager swarm began drifting aimlessly, their coordination broken. Lieutenant Cole was in the fight of his life aboard a damaged assembly cruiser that had been boarded by Ravagers. He had volunteered to assist their defense along with a dozen other human Marines. The assembly crew had never seen combat like this. They fired from behind cover, trying to slow the Ravagers' advance through the ship. Cole's squad did something else entirely. They met the Ravagers in the corridor and fought them hand to hand. "Humans do not retreat," Cole shouted as he drove his combat blade into a Ravager's soft underbelly. "We advance. Always advance!" His squad echoed the cry, a war shout that had no translation but needed none. The Ravagers, used to enemies fleeing before them, encountered something they had no adaptation for: prey that fought back with the ferocity of predators. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it finally ended, the Ravager swarm had been shattered. More than 60% of the enemy vessels were destroyed or disabled. The rest retreated, limping away from the system at whatever speed they could manage. The human fleet had taken losses: 12 ships destroyed, 43 damaged, 372 personnel killed, over 1,000 wounded. By assembly standards, the casualties were catastrophic. By human standards, they were acceptable losses for a decisive victory. Hayes addressed the combined human and assembly forces once the immediate danger had passed. Her image appeared on view screens across dozens of ships. "Today we learned something important. The Ravagers can be beaten. They are not invincible. They are not unstoppable. They are simply another predator. And humanity has been dealing with predators since we climbed down from the trees and decided to fight back." She paused, letting that sink in. "We also learned that we can fight alongside our assembly allies. Your tactics are different from ours. Your philosophy is different. But we share the same goal: protecting the innocent. That is enough." In the assembly cruiser's medical bay, Tellus found Kryn overseeing the treatment of his wounded crew. Several human medics had come aboard to assist, their training proving superior in trauma care. "They saved 60 of my crew," Kryn said quietly. "Wounds I thought were fatal they treated like minor injuries. Their medical technology is decades ahead of ours. Because they learned it by treating their own wounded," Tellus said. "They have been fighting their entire existence. Of course they got good at healing." "I owe them an apology," Kryn said. "I called them animals. I was wrong. Animals do not choose to protect others. Animals do not sacrifice themselves for strangers. The humans are not animals. They are warriors with honor." Tellus looked out at the human fleet, watching as they conducted repairs and tended to their wounded. Somewhere in that fleet was Sergeant Ross, who had fought through 3 Ravager ships and survived. Somewhere was Dr. Park, who had found a tactical advantage in biological data. Somewhere was Admiral Hayes, who had gambled everything on a single aggressive push and won. "The swarm will return," Tellus said. "This was only an advance force. Then we fight again," Kryn replied. "And this time we fight like humans. No more retreats. No more measured responses. We advance and we do not stop until they are destroyed. It was the highest compliment a warrior could give. The galaxy was learning that humans were dangerous, but they were also learning that dangerous and heroic could be the same thing. Victory at Bellum 7 bought time, but solved nothing. Admiral Hayes knew this as she studied the intelligence reports in her ready room. The swarm would regroup, adapt, and return with even greater numbers. Assembly military doctrine called for fortifying positions and preparing for the next defensive battle. Hayes had a different idea. "We need to kill the source," she told the assembled commanders 3 days after the battle. Representatives from both human and assembly forces crowded the briefing room aboard the Indomitable. "Every hive has a queen. Every network has a core node. We find it, destroy it, and the swarm collapses." General Kryn, who now sat with the human command staff rather than at a distance, shook his head slowly. "The swarm's origin point is deep in uncharted space. We estimate 3 weeks of travel through hostile territory. No fleet could make that journey and survive." "You are right. A fleet could not." Hayes pulled up tactical displays showing small, fast vessels. "But a strike team could. 50 Marines, 5 support staff, 1 ship with stealth capabilities. We go in quietly, locate the Queen, eliminate her, and leave before they know what happened." The assembly officers looked at each other with obvious discomfort. Ambassador Tellis spoke carefully. "Admiral, what you are describing is a suicide mission. Even if you reach the Queen, you would be surrounded by billions of Ravager organisms. How would you escape?" "We might not," Hayes said simply. "But stopping the swarm is worth that risk." Commander Cross stepped forward with additional data. "We have analyzed the swarm's behavior patterns. They function like earth insects, ants, or bees. Remove the Queen, and the drones become aimless. Some species even die without the Queen's pheromones directing them. If Dr. Park's theories are correct, the Ravagers operate on similar principles." Park nodded enthusiastically. "The biological data supports it. They share genetic markers that suggest centralized reproduction. 1 queen generating all drones. Standard hive structure. The question is not whether a queen exists, but whether we can reach her." Lieutenant Cole, now promoted after his actions at Bellum 7, raised his hand. "I volunteer for the strike team. So does my entire squad." "As do I," said Sergeant Ross, her left arm in a regeneration sleeve after losing it in boarding actions. "I am not letting you have all the fun, Cole." Within an hour, the volunteer list exceeded capacity. Hayes selected 50 of humanity's best Marines, individuals who understood that coming home was optional, but succeeding was mandatory. The assembly could only provide 5 volunteers willing to join what they openly called a death mission. One of them was Len, a featherlight, a species known for their lightweight frames and exceptional sensory capabilities. "Why volunteer?" Ross asked Len during the pre-mission briefing. "No offense, but your species is not exactly built for combat." Len's feathers ruffled with what might have been amusement. "Because you humans are insane enough to actually try this, and I want to witness it. Also, my people believe that great deeds are worth any price. If you truly can end the swarm, I will gladly die trying." The strike team departed 4 days later aboard a modified stealth frigate named Silent Running. The ship had been designed for reconnaissance missions in hostile territory, equipped with dampening fields that made it nearly invisible to most sensors. Cramming 55 individuals plus equipment into a vessel meant for a dozen made for uncomfortable quarters, but no one complained. The journey into swarm territory took 18 days. Hayes had wanted to lead the mission personally, but Cross convinced her that the fleet needed its admiral. Instead, Ross took command of the strike team, with Cole as her second. Dr. Park came along to identify the Queen using biological markers, and Len provided sensor expertise that proved invaluable in navigating swarm-controlled space. They passed through systems that had been scoured of life. Planets that once held billions now showed nothing but barren rock and organic residue. Cities reduced to nutrients for the swarm. Civilizations erased as if they had never existed. The Marines studied the devastation in silence, each scene reinforcing why they were here. "How do you cope with this?" Len asked Ross one evening as they reviewed the next day's navigation plan. You know this mission will likely kill you. Yet you joke, you laugh, you seem almost happy. Ross considered the question seriously. On Earth we have a saying, laugh or cry but never quit. Humans learned a long time ago that fear is natural. What matters is what you do despite the fear. We make jokes because it reminds us we are still alive. We laugh because it keeps us sane. And we are happy because we are doing something that matters. Your species is very strange, Len said. We know, Ross replied with a grin. We kinda like it that way. The closer they got to the swarm's core territory, the more dangerous navigation became. Ravager patrol ships moved through the space in unpredictable patterns. Twice they came within kilometers of detection, saved only by the Silent Running's stealth systems and some creative piloting. On day 16 they found it. The Queen ship was not a ship at all. It was a moon-sized organism floating in deep space, attended by thousands of smaller vessels. Its surface writhed with biological activity, constantly birthing new drones that flew off to join the swarm. The entire structure pulsed with a rhythm that Dr. Park identified as a massive circulatory system. That is the Queen, Park confirmed, his sensors reading bioelectric patterns from the creature. Everything else is spawned from her. She is the swarm. Cole studied the tactical situation with a professional eye. Getting in will be hard. Getting out will be impossible. The moment we attack, every Ravager in this system will converge on our position. Then we better move fast, Ross said. Park, how long do you need? Give me access to her central nervous system, and I can synthesize a toxin using modified human adrenaline compounds. The biochemistry is similar enough that what poisons us should poison her. 10 minutes to administer. Another 5 for it to take effect. 15 minutes inside the Queen while the entire swarm tries to kill us. Ross looked at her team. Anyone want to back out? Not a single hand moved. Len's feathers actually fluffed, with what Park had learned to recognize as excitement. Humans, it seemed, were contagious. They approached in silence, matching the orbit of a supply cluster heading toward the Queen. The Silent Running nestled among the organic vessels, masked by their biological signatures. When they were close enough, Ross gave the order. Drop stealth, hit the entry point with everything we have, get inside before they know what happened. The ship's weapons opened up on a soft section of the Queen's hull, tearing through organic armor with concentrated fire. Marines launched from airlocks before the ship even finished its attack run, propelling themselves toward the breach in zero gravity. Within seconds, they were inside the Queen and all hell broke loose. The interior was a nightmare of organic passages and hostile immune responses. Ravager drones poured from every direction, responding to the invasion like antibodies attacking a virus. The Marines formed a moving perimeter around Dr. Park, fighting their way deeper into the creature toward the nerve cluster Park's sensors identified as the center of consciousness. They lost 3 Marines in the first 5 minutes. Then 2 more when a passage collapsed. Another fell to a drone that got through the perimeter. But humans had learned warfare in environments like this. Caves, tunnels, enclosed spaces where there was no room for retreat. They adapted, improvised, and pushed forward. 12 minutes, Ross shouted over the gunfire. We need another 7. Cole's squad held a critical junction, pouring fire into waves of drones. We are not going to make it, someone yelled. Wrong, Cole roared back. We are going to make it because humans do not quit. We hold until Park Yido finishes or until we are all dead. Those are the only 2 options. Len fought alongside the humans using a weapon designed for his lighter frame but deadly in close quarters. He had seen humans fight before, but being inside the battle was different. They sang war songs. They called encouragement to each other. They fought with coordination that seemed telepathic, and when one fell, the others fought harder, as if channeling the fallen spirit into their own actions. 8 minutes, Park called out. I am at the nerve cluster, starting synthesis. The drones seemed to understand that something critical was happening. Their attacks intensified. Ross's perimeter began to collapse inward as Marines fell or ran out of ammunition. In desperation, they formed a shield wall with their own bodies, protecting Park while he worked. Sergeant Ross took a claw to the chest that punched through her armor. She kept firing until Cole dragged her behind the line. Her lung was punctured, blood filling her helmet. She should have been panicking, dying. Instead, she laughed. "Finish it, Park," she gasped. "Make this mean something." "Toxin ready," Park shouted. "Administering now." He plunged the massive syringe into the nerve cluster, emptying the contents directly into the Queen's nervous system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire structure began to convulse. The drones attacking them froze mid-motion as if confused. Then they began dying, dropping to the ground as the Queen's death throes disrupted their genetic programming. "It worked," Len cried out. "The Queen is dying." "Great," Cole said. "Now we just need to get out before this whole thing collapses on us." They ran through passages that were already beginning to decay, the Queen's immune system shutting down with her consciousness. Marines carried their wounded. Len guided them using sensors that tracked the thinnest parts of the hull. Behind them, the internal structure was failing, crushing and consuming itself. They burst out of an emergency breach into open space just as the Queen began her final collapse. The silent running swooped in, magnetic tethers catching Marines and pulling them aboard. Ross was the last one retrieved, barely conscious but still alive. As they accelerated away from the dying Queen, sensors showed swarm ships throughout the system becoming dormant. Without the Queen's direction, they simply stopped functioning. The swarm was defeated. 17 Marines had died in the assault. 17 humans who would never see Earth again, never tell their stories, never receive the honors they deserved. But they had killed a Queen and saved billions. Ross, recovering in the medical bay with her chest wound being treated by advanced human medical technology, looked at Len, who sat beside her. "Still think we are insane?" she asked weakly. "Oh, absolutely," Len replied. "But I also think you are the bravest beings I have ever known. Insanity and courage might be the same thing where humans are concerned." "We like to call it determination," Ross said, "but insane works too." News of the Queen's death spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, reports confirmed what sensors had already shown. The Ravager swarm was collapsing. Without centralized direction, the drones became aimless, attacking each other or simply drifting until their biological systems failed. Worlds that had prepared for invasion watched the threat dissolve before their eyes. Station Harmonix was packed with representatives from every member species, along with dozens of observers from civilizations that had never attended assembly sessions before. Everyone wanted to witness what came next. The gallery overlooking the main chamber held more spectators than it had ever been designed for, with species pressing together despite vastly different biologies, united by a shared desire to see history made. Admiral Hayes stood in the center of the chamber, flanked by Commander Cross and Dr. Park. Lieutenant Cole and Sergeant Ross, still recovering from her wounds, stood slightly behind them in full-dress uniform. The human delegation was small, intentionally so. They were not here to grandstand or intimidate. They were here to listen. High Chancellor Orim opened the session with formal words that acknowledged the unprecedented nature of the gathering. Then he turned the floor over to Ambassador Tellis, who had become humanity's strongest advocate among assembly members. Tellis rose slowly, his forearms spread in a gesture of openness that most species recognized. 80 years ago, this assembly made a decision out of fear. We encountered a species unlike anything we had known, and we chose isolation over integration. We told ourselves it was for the safety of the galaxy. We convinced ourselves that humans were too dangerous, too violent, too alien to join civilized space. He paused, letting silence fill the chamber. We were right about one thing. Humans are dangerous. We witnessed that danger at Bellum 7, where they charged into overwhelming enemy forces without hesitation. We witnessed it when they boarded Ravager ships and fought in conditions that would kill most of us within minutes. We witnessed it when a strike team volunteered for a mission they knew was likely suicide. General Kryn stood from his seat, an unusual break in protocol. "I wish to speak." Orim granted permission with a wave of his aquatic appendage. Kryn faced the human delegation directly. "I called them animals. I said they were too savage for civilized company." His voice carried the weight of someone admitting a profound mistake. "I was a fool. I watched Sergeant Ross fight with a punctured lung, still protecting her comrades. I saw Lieutenant Cole hold a position against impossible odds because his orders demanded it. I witnessed Admiral Hayes risk everything on a strategy that required trust in her personnel's ability to do the impossible. He turned to address the full assembly. These are not animals. These are warriors with honor that shames our own. They do not fight because they enjoy violence. They fight because they believe protection is a moral duty. They came to save us despite how we treated them. They asked for nothing in return. How many of us can claim such integrity? The chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates agreed enthusiastically. Others raised concerns about long-term implications of allowing humans full access to galactic civilization. The argument raged until Chancellor Orem activated the silence field once more. We will vote on 3 measures, Orem announced. First, immediate termination of the Sol system quarantine. Second, formal recognition of humanity as a full member of the Galactic Assembly with all accompanying rights and responsibilities. Third, establishment of joint military training programs between human and assembly forces. Before the vote could begin, Hayes requested permission to speak. Orem granted it, and she stepped forward to address the assembly directly. We appreciate this debate, but I need to be clear about something. Her voice carried the calm authority that had commanded fleets into battle. Earth does not need your permission to exist. We did not need your permission to help you. For 80 years you locked us away and pretended we did not matter. We built our civilization without you. We advanced our technology without you. We developed our philosophy and culture completely separate from your influence. The chamber had gone absolutely silent. Hayes continued. If you choose to maintain the quarantine, we will respect it. We will return to Sol system, and you will never hear from us again unless you ask for help. But understand this. Next time you face a threat, you will know that somewhere in the galaxy, there is a species willing to fight alongside you, and you chose to keep them at arm's length out of fear. She softened her tone slightly. However, if you choose to accept us, you need to understand what that means. We will not change who we are to make you comfortable. We are loud. We are direct. We value action over endless debate. We form emotional attachments to other species with embarrassing ease. We will probably make you uncomfortable sometimes, but we will also stand beside you when threats emerge, and we will never stop fighting until the job is done. Ambassador Tellis spoke again. The question before us is simple. Do we want allies who will die to protect us, or do we want comfort? Because we cannot have both. Humanity will never be comfortable. They will challenge us, push us, force us to reconsider what we think we know, but they will also transform us into something stronger. The vote took 3 hours of deliberation and debate. When it finally concluded, the results were announced. The quarantine was lifted by unanimous vote. Full assembly membership passed with 92% approval. Military cooperation programs passed with 87% approval. Humanity was officially welcomed into galactic civilization. The celebration that followed was unlike anything Station Harmonix had ever seen. Human crew members mingled with alien species, sharing food, stories, and laughter. Dr. Park found himself surrounded by xenobiologists eager to compare notes. Commander Cross discussed tactical theory with assembly strategists who hung on her every word. Lieutenant Cole demonstrated human martial arts to fascinated warriors from a dozen species. Sergeant Ross, against medical advice, attended the celebration despite her injuries. She found Len sitting in a quiet corner, watching the chaos with an expression that might have been contentment. Not enjoying the party? Ross asked, carefully sitting down beside him. Enjoying it very much, Len replied. I am simply savoring this moment. I traveled into the heart of death with humans and lived to tell about it. My offspring will tell this story for generations. Your species does not think we are crazy anymore. Oh no, we absolutely think you are crazy. Len's feathers ruffled with amusement. But we also think crazy might be exactly what the galaxy needs. You make us braver just by existing. Admiral Hayes found herself speaking with Chancellor Orem in private later that evening. The old leader had requested a quiet conversation away from the festivities. I must confess something, Orem said. When I agreed to send that message to Earth, I believed it would accomplish nothing. I thought you would refuse, or demand impossible concessions, or seek revenge for the quarantine. I did not expect what actually happened. What did happen? Hayes asked. You reminded us of something we had forgotten. Orem's bioluminescence pulsed softly. The galaxy has become very comfortable. We have established rules for everything. Protocols for war that minimize casualties. Diplomatic procedures that take years. We have become so civilized that we forgot what it means to fight for something that matters. You showed us that there is honor in sacrifice, that sometimes the only moral choice is the dangerous one." Hayes smiled. "You are giving us too much credit. We just did what needed doing." "That," Orem said, "is precisely what makes you remarkable. You see something that needs doing and you do it. No debate, no endless committee meetings, just action. The Assembly desperately needs that perspective." 3 months later, Earth held its own ceremony. A monument was erected on Luna, visible from Earth's surface, honoring the 17 Marines who died in the Queen's Nest. Their names were inscribed in stone that would last millennia. The monument's inscription read, "They were called savage. They were called dangerous. They proved that the fiercest protectors make the truest friends. Humanity at its finest." Admiral Hayes retired from active military service to become Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Assembly. Commander Cross took command of the first Joint Human Assembly Fleet, a mixed force designed to respond to future threats. Dr. Park established the Institute for Xenomedical Research, where human and alien scientists worked together to advance medical knowledge. Lieutenant Cole took over training programs, teaching Assembly soldiers human combat techniques. Sergeant Ross recovered fully and became an instructor as well, specializing in close-quarters combat and survival training. General Kryn worked directly with them, creating a hybrid military doctrine that combined human aggression with Assembly precision. Ambassador Tellus became Earth's closest ally in Assembly politics, navigating the complex diplomatic landscape that humans found endlessly frustrating. His friendship with Hayes was legendary, the insectoid ambassador and the human warrior making an odd but effective team. On the anniversary of the Queen's death, Hayes stood at the memorial on Luna with Tellus beside her. Earth hung in the sky above them, beautiful and deadly, the death world that had birthed a species the galaxy now relied upon. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had not sent that message?" Tellus asked. "The swarm would have destroyed the Assembly," Hayes said without hesitation. "You would have fought bravely. You would have lost, and humanity would have remained in isolation until the swarm reached Sol system. Then we would have fought alone. But you would have won," Tellus said with certainty. "Maybe. Probably. But we would have lost so much more." Hayes gestured toward the memorial. These 17 gave their lives to save people they had never met, from species who had rejected them. That is humanity at its best. Not our weapons, not our tactics, our willingness to protect others. The quarantine robbed the galaxy of that gift for 80 years. I am grateful we finally got the chance to share it. Tellus's compound eyes reflected the light from Earth. "There are reports from the far rim. Sensor anomalies. Something is out there, moving through deep space toward our region. It may be nothing. Or it may be everything," Hayes said. "You are asking if humanity will answer the call again. Will you?" Hayes looked at her friend, her ally, her fellow guardian of a galaxy that was still learning what it meant to stand together. "Tell us we are human. Protecting others is not something we do. It is what we are. When that threat arrives, we will be there. Not because we enjoy fighting. Not because we seek glory, but because somewhere someone will need help and humans have never been able to walk away from that." She smiled. "Besides, you have seen what we are like when we are bored. Trust me, you want us focused on external threats." Tellus made a sound that his species used for laughter. "The galaxy is going to be very interesting from now on." "The galaxy was always interesting," Hayes corrected. "It just took a while to realize that dangerous and valuable are not contradictions. We are humanity. We are Deathworlders. We are warriors, protectors, and friends. And we are exactly what this galaxy needs." In orbit above them, the combined human assembly fleet conducted training exercises, ships from dozens of worlds working in coordination that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. On Earth, children of various species played together in integration schools, learning each other's languages and cultures. On assembly worlds, human advisors helped develop defensive strategies that balanced caution with action. The galaxy had held its breath when the Deathworlders' fleet arrived. Now it breathed easily, knowing that when the next threat emerged from the darkness, humanity would be there to meet it. Not with mindless violence, but with the fierce protective instinct that defined them. The human species had finally come home to a galaxy that was slowly learning to appreciate them, and the galaxy was becoming something better for it.